Mr. Harker, I'll ask you in a moment about an app that you've got, which is what we particularly want to focus on. But before I do that, was there a period of time between your father starting to receive the level 4 home care package and the app becoming available to you?
Yes, it was approximately 2 years prior to that, yeah.
Right. So I want to ask you a bit about that period of 2 years. How often would you have seen your dad, say, in an average week during that period of time?
I'll personally probably be 3 times a week, and my brother would be visiting probably the same as well.
Right. And tell us a bit about the circumstances. Presumably some of them were just standard social calls when you popped in to see how your dad was and had a cup of tea,
exactly,
or a beer or whatever. Were there other times, though, that you had to go in more sort of emergency type situations?
Yes, that's correct. So we've had a couple of times with my dad's dementia where he's left the house unknown, and I've received calls from police or ambulance or from the hospital to say that we have your dad in with us, and can you come and meet up and work through the issue.
Yeah. And from your point of view, how was that experience? How would you describe finding yourself in those situations?
Yeah, it's very unsettling, of course. Just concerned for my own dad's safety and well-being. We're sort of constantly worrying after that point when the first time it happened, but then it was from time to time it would happen again. It was just not knowing what was actually going on in his home environment, whether or not he was home or whatever he was doing. So, very unsettling.
Putting those situations, those more extreme situations, to one side, on a day-to-day basis, before you had access to this app, which I'll ask you about in a moment, were there other concerns that you had about your dad's welfare?
Yeah, so we just didn't know what was going on inside the house. Obviously, ECH were present twice a day, every day.
Yes.
But we were just unaware of what things were going on. As far as his eating habits, he's going to the toilet, having sleep, what's his sort of the general patterns, his routines around the house. We just had really no idea. And because when we got there, unfortunately with his dementia, he was really unable to communicate succinctly what was going on, or whether or not he's actually had any issues for that period of time. So it was just the knowledge, that lack of knowledge we had was a little concerning.
Now, I should have asked you at the outset, does your father have any other health concerns other than the dementia and the normal process of ageing?
No, thankfully everything else is working quite well.
Okay. Now, if we can turn then to the app, the Commissioner's heard some evidence about the Billy app at a hearing in Melbourne last year. So Mr. Panto, who I think is ultimately your boss, Ms. Griggs, gave evidence about the investment in the app actually being related to the sale of the residential care business. That was the context in which he was asked about that. So from your point of view, Mr. Harker, can you give us a brief description of how it came about that this app became available to you? Who initiated that discussion and what were you told?
Yeah, so it was through the ECH care manager that George had at the time. They made contact with myself and my brother and let us know about this new technology and whether or not we'd be willing to trial it. And after reading through some of the brochures that were made available, we were very keen to have a go at it and see if it could provide any sort of positive results for us.
Tell us a bit about it. What is it? How does it work?
Okay. Yeah, sure. So the app can work on an Android or an Apple device quite easily. Basically, there are a number of sensors throughout the house that are strategically placed. I think it's up to a number of 6 that are available. And those sensors are put in places where if you want some feedback from a particular area, i.e. the front door, or the fridge door, or areas that would lead into the bathroom facility. So these sensors are there taking data in as persons walk past them. They'll also can tell you the temperature in that location as well. So based on all these inputs, the Billy app has a number of routines that are set up on a per user basis, and that can give you some feedback about what is generally going on in the house for that.
Okay. Now the sensors, of course, are in your father's home, not your home. They're recording his movements around the house. Is that right?
That's right. So there's an internet connection within the house. These sensors feed into that, and then come back through the Billy app system.
All right. And is there any additional cost associated with the app over and above the package that your father is in receipt of?
No, it's all the costing is gone through the level 4 program.
We'll see in a moment that there are certain parameters that are set within the technology. How were they? Was that something that there was consultation about with you between ECH and yourself about what information should be recorded?
Yes, there was. We spent a number of time with ECH person who was actually running that process at the time. Yes. So we had a meeting. They came down to the house. We all had a look around to see what sort of information from a family perspective would be interested in, and they provided some feedback to what generally some of the things that could be a good idea to use. So based on our input and their advice, we came up with what we have today.
All right. Now, picture, of course, is worth 1,000 words. So you've been kind enough to give us some screenshots from your phone which help illustrate the technology. Perhaps if the first of those could be put up on the screen. It's dated Sunday the 8th of March 2020. I'm hoping you can still hear me, Mr. Harker. Yep, there you are in the corner. Thank you.
Yep.
Can you see that screenshot, Sunday 8 March 2020?
Yes, I can.
And can you talk us through that, please?
Sure. So as part of as I mentioned before, as part of the 5 routines that are set up, which we'll see in another screenshot, this picture shows a history of those routines. And one of them in particular you can see is the fact that my dad left the house at 2:09 p.m. and returned 2 hours 15 minutes later. Now this was thankfully a scheduled outing with myself. We took him out shopping, but that's the sort of feedback we can get if that was an unscheduled exit from the house, which we would be notified to say that that's not quite right.
And thank you. If we look at the top of the screen, we see home by 6 p.m. and then a tick. Is that a parameter that was resulted from those discussions that you had? That is, you wanted to know whether your dad on any given day was home by 6?
Yes. So all of those things we worked through with the ECH at the time.
Yes.
And they are based on those 5 routines that you'll see shortly on the other screenshots.
All right. Perhaps we can go to the second screen, Sunday, the 15th of March, 2020. So that's the following Sunday, and if we can see the third of those sitting in lounge room. There's a sensor in the lounge room that identifies whether or not he has spent any time in that room. Is that right?
That's correct. That's his general location throughout the day.
Yes.
So we see if that's occurred at any given time.
All right. And the bottom of that screen, eat breakfast, occurred at 11:46. Always nice to have a sleep in on a Sunday.
Yes. So basically, there is a sensor on the fridge. So when the door is opened in the morning, obviously he had a bit of sleep in this day. We can educate, see that it's likely he's has something to eat in the morning.
You can go to the third screen, please. Third screenshot. top of the screen there, we see 1 minute ago living area. Do we understand that to be a real-time information that you're getting about where your father is at any point in time?
That's correct. So it tells me that yes, he's in the living area. The last recorded sensor change was 1 minute ago, and you can see the current temperature in that room, 25 degrees, which is enormously helpful, especially on hot Adelaide days, that we at least know he's got the air conditioning on.
Yes. And is there anything else on that page in particular that you draw our attention to?
So this is from the bottom left-hand corner. You can just see the routine.
Yes.
So these are the 5 routines that are set in place. You can only see 4 of those, unfortunately, in this screenshot. But they're the ones that get tracked every day to see how he's going.
And what do you know offhand what the 5th one is?
The other one is home by 6 p.m.
All right.
That's not shown.
We saw that earlier.
That's right. Yes.
Yep. And then if we can go to the 4th screen.